You tell yourself it's just easier this way. Easier to do it alone. Easier to rely on yourself. Easier than being disappointed. Again. So you become the strong one, the independent one, the one who says, I got it, even when you're drowning. But here's the question that probably sits quietly in the back of your mind. Why does letting people help you feel uncomfortable? Why does depending on someone feel more dangerous than exhaustion? And why, even when you're tired, do you still refuse to put anything down? Because this isn't just independence. This is psychology. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Imagine this. You're overwhelmed. Work is piling up. Messages unanswered. Your mind is noisy. Your body is tired. Someone notices. They say, if you need help, just tell me. And you smile. No, I'm good. Automatic, polite, quick. Almost like a reflex. But what you don't say is, I don't know how to trust that you actually mean that. So you stay up late finishing everything yourself. Again, and again, and again. Not because you want to, because something inside you won't let you do anything else. Most people think this comes from being too independent, but that's not where it starts. It usually starts much earlier, with a moment, or many small moments. Moments where you needed support and it didn't come. Maybe you were told, stop being dramatic, or handle it yourself. Or maybe nobody said anything at all. They just weren't there. So your brain did something very smart. It adapted. It learned the rule. If I depend on others, I risk being hurt. If I depend on myself, I stay safe. And that rule didn't just become a thought. It became a survival strategy. Here's the part most people never realize. Doing everything yourself is rarely about strength. It's about control, because control feels like safety. When you do everything yourself, nobody can let you down. Nobody can do it wrong. Nobody can leave you halfway through. You remove the variables. You remove the risk. But you also remove something else. Connection. Pause for a second and think about this. When was the last time you actually allowed someone to show up for you? Not when you couldn't handle it anymore, but when you could and still chose to let them help you. If that question makes you uncomfortable, that's not random. That's the pattern. People who struggle to let others in usually share one hidden fear. If I stop being the strong one, who am I? Because strength may have become your identity, the reliable one, the problem solver, the emotionally stable one, the one everyone leans on. But nobody asks, who holds you? And maybe the harder truth is, you don't let them. There's also something deeper happening, something quieter. Many self-reliant people aren't just afraid of being disappointed, they're afraid of being seen. Because if someone gets close enough to help you, they might also see your fears, your doubts, your messy thoughts, the parts of you that don't feel strong at all. And maybe somewhere inside is the belief, if they see the real me, they might decide I'm too much. So it's safer to be impressive than honest, safer to be capable than vulnerable, safer to be needed than known. Think about how this shows up in real life. You struggle silently instead of asking questions. You Google things instead of texting someone. You fix your own problems even when someone offered help. You say, don't worry about it, even when you wish someone would. You feel uncomfortable when someone does something nice for you. Not because you don't appreciate it, because it creates a quiet debt you never asked for. And depending on someone feels like owing someone something. So you avoid the whole system. You just carry everything yourself. But here's the twist most people miss. Hyper-independence often comes from people who actually have very big hearts. People who learned early to be careful. People who give easily. People who notice everything. People who were hurt not because they were weak, but because they cared deeply. So they made a quiet decision. I won't stop caring. I'll just stop needing. Pause again for a moment. Ask yourself honestly. Do you actually trust people, or do you just trust your ability to survive them? Because those are very different things. Here's another realization that changes everything. Hyper-independence often comes from a trauma response that looks like success. Society praises it. "You're so strong. You're so mature. You don't need anyone." And part of you feels proud hearing that, but another part feels strangely tired. Because what people are really praising is how well you learn to carry pain quietly. And there's something exhausting about never putting your armor down. Even warriors need somewhere safe enough to rest. The problem is, if you've worn the armor long enough, taking it off can feel more dangerous than keeping it on. Here's something subtle but important. Not letting people help you doesn't actually protect you from pain. It just guarantees one specific kind of pain: loneliness. Not the obvious kind, the quiet kind. Being surrounded by people, but feeling like nobody really knows you, because they only know the version of you that never needs anything. And here's the uncomfortable truth. People can't feel close to you if you never let them contribute to your life. Connection isn't built only by giving. It's built by receiving too. When someone helps you, they're not just solving a problem. They're investing emotionally. They're attaching. They're caring. And when you reject every offer, sometimes what they feel isn't respect, it's distance. But here's the realization that changes the story. You don't have to suddenly become someone who depends on everyone. This isn't about becoming needy. It's about becoming open. There's a difference. Needing people to survive is dependence. Allowing people to matter is trust. Try this experiment. Small, almost uncomfortable. Next time someone offers something small, don't say, "I'm good," immediately. Pause, just 2 seconds longer than usual, and ask yourself, what am I actually afraid will happen if I say yes? Not the logical answer, the emotional one. That's where the real story lives. Maybe you're afraid they'll do it wrong. Maybe they'll expect something back. Maybe they'll see you're not as put together as you seem. Or maybe it might feel good, and then you'd have something to lose. Here's the part nobody tells you. Letting people in is risky. They might disappoint you. They might misunderstand you. They might not show up the way you hoped. But doing everything alone guarantees something too. You will always carry more than you were meant to. Strength isn't measured by how much you can carry alone. Sometimes it's measured by how safe you allow yourself to be with the right people. And maybe that's the real challenge for people like you. Not working harder, not becoming tougher, but slowly believing this dangerous idea. Maybe I don't have to earn support. Maybe I don't have to deserve care. Maybe I can just receive it. And maybe the biggest shift isn't learning to need people. It's learning that letting people care about you doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. So here's something to sit with tonight. What if your independence isn't just strength, but also a wall? And what if your next level of growth isn't becoming stronger, but becoming safe enough to sometimes be seen without the armor? You don't have to drop everything at once. You don't have to suddenly trust everyone. You don't have to tell your whole story. Maybe it starts smaller than that. Maybe it starts with not saying, "I got it," one time. Maybe it starts with letting someone show up in a small way. Maybe it starts with believing that you were never meant to do life as a solo project. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who never need anyone. They're the ones who slowly learn they don't always have to be alone.